Okay guys, we're going to do a revision video on the Olympic ideals. This is for your A-level PE paper 2, and let's focus. So to start off with, we'll start straight into this exam question. So you could always just pause the video and have a go at this exam question. Summarize the ideals of the modern Olympic Games. It's 4 marks, just a quick one. All it is summarize, and it's just asking for the ideals. So you're literally just going to essentially not list the ideals, but just write a sentence that covers at least 4 different Olympic ideals. So pause the video and have a go. I'll show you the mark scheme in a few seconds. Okay, so if you want to have a look at the mark scheme here, you've got the ideas of promotion of the word Olympianism, which is a philosophy of life combining the body, mind, will, and it's going to be a running theme throughout this video, the word Olympianism. Other elements there, we have free from political interference, global harmony through sport, friendship excellence, and free from drug abuse, respect for all, equal opportunities, inclusion for all. Now what you might also notice is there's a point here that says where appropriate candidates may use alternative wording such as ethical principles. So as you see down here, the keywords are just going to show up on every slide just so you have it in your head. So give yourself a quick mark of that. It's only 4 marks and it's a good starting point for this revision. Okay, it was worthwhile spending a bit of time just freezing the screen, pausing the screen, and just having a quick read of this examiner's report. Now, one of the things that you want to be picking out on is that it wasn't well answered by a majority of the candidates. Few understood the ideals of the International Olympic Committee, the IOC. Then you've got many people just sort of said winning, taking part is more important than winning, which is accepted, but it has to be linked to things like friendship, respect, and sportsmanship. And as you say, there's a bit on excellence here. And further down, and I think this is really important to pick out, it says candidates or centres may wish to now focus on an area of this area of specification in their future teaching. So it's potentially coming up because this since this exam question came up, there haven't been many questions on the Olympic ideal. So do have this as a way of remembering or as your starting point for your revision. So a more complicated way of looking at the Olympic ideals is, are they still valid? So it might be a discuss type question, discuss the Olympic ideals. It might be examine the Olympic ideals. So it's not just what are the Olympic ideals, but also are they valid? Yes, they're still valid. No, they're not valid. Or yes, they still exist. Or no, they don't exist. So I think that's the way to go with these sort of exam questions. But you still need to have in the back of your head, what are the Olympic ideals, and then whether they are valid. So let's start off with the ideal of Olympianism is essentially what we're looking at is excellence. The Olympic Games are the pinnacle of sporting performance. There are records and sort of like a validation of, yes, it's still valid. The word of excellence, is, well, there's records being broken every single Olympics. People are always improving. The competition is the highest level. So you can just straight away back that ideal up of that it's what everyone strives to reach the Olympics. There's qualifications to get to the Olympics. There's set times and set standards that show that it has to be the best of the best. And then the records, world records and Olympic records are constantly broken at Olympics. Then you've got these other sort of Olympic ideals, the ideas of friendship, courage, inspiration, respect, determination. They're seen in many examples of the Olympics, and it's worthwhile having one in the back of your mind that you can just relate to and apply to. So the most recent one that I can think of was in the 2020 Games, where the 2 high jumpers, one from Italy and one from Qatar, they shared their Olympic gold medal. They were nearly 3 hours into their competition, the high jump competition. Both of them had cleared the same heights, exactly the same heights. They both failed on exactly the same heights, and it was going to become a potential jump off for the winner and to first and second place, and essentially that's a 1 jump each and sort of a sudden death, if you like, sort of scenario where both of the athletes were actually exhausted by the time when you come to 3 hours of this competition, and both of them essentially agreed that they would share the gold medal rather than continue to compete against each other. And if you watch the video, if you search this on YouTube, you'll find videos and interviews of them talking about it's more than just competition. It's about harmony and peace and friendship and respect, and it's the recognition of hard work and all of these sort of evidence of Olympic ideals. And if you other videos you can search, I've just put one down here on YouTube. You just search on the Olympic channel, like sporting, the Olympic sporting spirit. There are lots and lots of examples of athletes helping one another, even though they're competitives, and that ideology of the Olympics exists and carries on. And part of the Olympic ideal is to promote this building a peaceful world, global harmony. And that does exist still. And many of these points that we're going to talk about are not just the ideals of individually, but the ideals as a collective. Do the ideals exist as collectively? And in this case, we can say, yes, it does. However, let's look at the no's. So now, any sort of element of the Olympics, it could be good things that happen in the Olympics and bad things that happen in the Olympics, can be affected by commercialization and commercialism, and there's inevitable commercial circus that follows something that happens in the Olympics. And that can compromise the ideals, where someone can do something which is amazing, but then the media and commercialism will get on top of that, and it detracts from the actual values of the Olympics and more of the money-making side and the commercialization side. The thing about Golden Triangle. The other sort of point that people will always talk about is, it's free from drug abuse, or the Olympic ideals is free from drug abuse. And if you just look at this chart here, really, where you can see this clear rise in drug taking in the Olympics. These are for medalists only, so this is data taken from the medalists, and it's up to 2012, but we can anticipate that path has continued to grow. And in Mexico City, essentially where they started the medals, sort of like that idea of drug testing. And if you remember from some of your revision, where WADA was set up, or if you look at the deviants and that side of it, WADA was set up in '94, and as you can see from there, it took them a while to get going, but the big increase in drugs being athletes being tested positive for drugs, medalists being tested positive for drugs, because they got their act together and they started drug testing properly, and WADA are enforcing those sort of processes. So can we say that the drugs are the Olympics are free from drug use? No, we can't. It's not. It's clear that athletes medalists are taking drugs. Can we say that it's a new thing? No, because like here, for example, Moscow, 0 medalists taking drugs. It's because there was no drug testing taking place. WADA was set up around about here in the mid-90s, and that correlates to more people being tested positive for drugs. So it's not a new thing, but it's definitely something that contradicts the ideals that athletes are still taking drugs. So have that sort of, you don't have to remember the figures, but do have the concept of this graph where every year more people are getting caught for taking drugs. Okay, let's go back to the values of the Olympics are still, the ideals are still valid, and the values of the Olympics are still present. So there are greater equal opportunities. The idea of equal opportunity, respect, everyone has the same amount of chances is seen, and we have the Paralympics as a great example where people with disabilities are given the opportunity to compete, and you could just literally reel off a few examples of Paralympians or Paralympic events. So we've got blind long jumping, different events running for with people with blades and stuff like that, where we have those opportunities for people with disabilities. We can also look at this data here, where this is showing the number of Paralympians or competitors at the Paralympics and the number of countries. And what you can see, there's a steady increase every year, where more and more countries are competing in the Paralympics, and more athletes are also competing in the Paralympics. So you can say, again, there's a positive linear curve with positive linear relationship between time and the number of Paralympic athletes. And we also have the other side of the argument for equal opportunities, where there's a greater percentage of women competing at the Olympics. And when we're talking about barriers to participation and how times have changed and opportunities have changed for women, Jacques Rouge, who was one of the heads of the IOC, the Olympic chair, he wanted a 50-50 split between male and female performers. And as we can see, that de Coubertin, who when he stepped the Olympics back up, they were, it was a male-dominated event, but Jacques Rouge wanted 50-50. And you can see as time has progressed, more and more women have taken part in the Olympic Games until we get to, this is 2020, which is in Tokyo, where it's 48% women and 51% male, or 48 point something and 51% for males. And if we look at that curve, we're probably going to see in the Paris Olympics in 2024 that it will probably be 50-50 if we're taking this curve on. So yeah, there are greater opportunities for women, and it's equal opportunities now, and that means the values are still the ideals are still valid. Okay, back to the no's, it's not valid. So in terms of, and we can link this to equal opportunities still, the idea of fair and equal competition and equal opportunities may come down to where you are born and what country you live in, or what country you come from. So essentially, if you live in a rich country, there's a much more chance of you medaling. As in gaining a medal. So this was in Tokyo Olympics 2020. USA dominated the medal haul. China, Japan, UK. The richer nations will typically dominate the medal counts, and it's and also dominate the amount of athletes that qualify and can enter, because they've got more money, they have more opportunities for their athletes, the better training facilities, better coaches. So that's definitely a point against the equality, because you may have grown up in a poorer country and don't have that opportunity to reach the Olympics. Then you've got the idea that, and this is probably the oldest sort of idea that people will talk about, is that winning is more important than taking part, or taking part is more important than winning, which is an ideal, and people would argue that isn't the case anymore, that people are out to get medals. It's more important for the countries to gain medals, it's more important for the athletes to gain medals. And different countries have different prize money for medaling athletes. Now, one of the points you could say, actually, the Olympics still try to promote that idea of amateurism, and that it's about taking part, is that the IOC don't provide any money or any prizes other than the medal for winning the Olympics. You don't get anything from the IOC, but the individual countries will put money and prizes up for their athletes, and Singapore is the country that has the highest pot of money, prize money, followed by Indonesia, and I think, for example, like USA is about $50,000 around that for the winning an Olympic gold, but in Singapore it's just shy of $1 million. So it is profitable for athletes to win Olympic gold medals, but not just the prize money they get from their countries. It can be the advertising, the sponsorship. Then think about the Golden Triangle and those sort of elements that you will pick up from just winning. You'll get more endorsements and more sponsorship, which will essentially give you more money. So that winning is more important than actually taking part for many of the athletes. Now, one of the big values is, and this is more about values than an actual singular value, but I would say this is linked to the equal opportunities still. The Olympic program still, the Olympic IOC still have programs and schemes, and one of them is called the Olympic Solidarity Scheme. And if you type that into Google or YouTube, you'll find a video on it that explains it really well. But the idea is that they share the Olympic IOC shares the wealth and the profit they make with the countries that need it more. So if you're coming from a country where there isn't the opportunities for you because of financial elements, they will provide the National Olympic Committees of those countries funding to help develop their athletes, help develop coaches, help facilities, and help the athletes reach their way. So that's called the Olympic Solidarity Program. It still exists, it's up and running, and it's a great way to back up the fact that the values of the Olympics are still in place, particularly that equal opportunities for athletes. There is also programs run by the IOC, which is Sports for Hope. That still runs, and I'll have a link on here, which you won't be able to click because it's a video, but it's about, it's called Olympiasm 365, and it's the idea that they have different sports-focused development projects to try and kickstart those Olympic opportunities for potential athletes. Okay, now there's a term called shamateurism. The Olympics set up were initially as amateurs only, and it's slowly progressed to become a professional competition. But and there's a contradiction, and this is just an abstract from this book here that I've just pulled off of the internet, and it's the concept of amateurism still underpins the values of the Olympics. However, many of the competitors are professional athletes, and it's definitely swung in that manner that athletes now make their money from their sports, whereas in the past it hasn't been. So the ideal of the amateurism and those sort of values that are linked to amateurism are still applied to the Olympics. However, the contradiction is that athletes aren't amateurs anymore, they are professionals. The term they use is shamateurism. They live the values of amateurism apparently, but they're not amateurs, they get paid. And even if they were amateurs, they would still be getting money from sponsors, competition fees from various other events. There's not just appearance fees, for example. Even though they don't get them from the Olympics, they will get them from other events that are organised, and prize money from different events. So they're not purely amateurs. Okay, now this one is about the I suppose excellence as the ideal, but the idea of fair and honest competition. And we can probably go two sort of ways of looking at it. Yes, it exists still, that it is still a valid point. And if you look at, other than drug taking, the evidence of cheating is declining. There's not as much evidence of cheating. The Olympics are really strict with competition judges, etc., on monitoring kit and other aspects of cheating. So equipment and kit can't be tampered with. However, obviously drug taking still exists, so there's that element of cheating. But the non PED performance enhancing and drug examples of cheating is declining. Now, the other counterpoint to that, the fair and honest competition, is it does still exist. And an example was in the 2012 Olympics, where we had the badminton scandal. If you type it on YouTube or internet, you'll probably find it out a lot more detailed, where the athletes going through, those two Chinese teams who were potentially lined up to play each other in the finals. It was and they were in the semi-finals or quarterfinals, can't quite remember. But and one team had to lose, so they didn't end up facing each other in the semi-finals, and they threw the game, but the opposition Korea were also throwing the game, and both teams got disqualified. And actually, if you look into more detail, I think it was 10 badminton players got disqualified for not playing to the highest standard they can be, playing at the excellence, and they were essentially cheating by match fixing. So as an example, it still exists today where we're not got that fair and honest competition. Okay, and finally, the idea of inclusivity is valid, and the Olympics every year add new sports, and those sports are becoming more contemporary, where we've got skateboarding, and this is Sky Brown, who won at Tokyo for us, one of our youngest ever winners in skateboarding, but that's one of our Olympic sports now. rock climbing was brought into the Tokyo Olympics, and then in the Paris Games we're going to be we've got also the inclusion of surfing and breakdancing. Actually, surfing was in the Tokyo Games, but we have surfing, breakdancing, BMX. We've got various forms of BMX racing and stunt BMX competitions, and then we have, you know, obviously the skateboarding and rock climbing. And what we're seeing is it's a spread of the Olympic ideals, the Olympianism, through minority sports, and that reaches wider audiences than they typically would with the traditional sports for the Olympics. So the ideals are valid, they're still promoted, and they still exist. Now, I would strongly advise the revision on this area for the Olympics. I don't anticipate there will be an Olympic question this year. However, will it be on the commercialization aspect of Olympics or the ideals? I don't know. But this does line up nicely for a 15-mark exam question if it was to be asked, as in, are the values still, or are the ideals still valid? And you would start maybe with what are the values, and then you would present your argument for and against. So definitely revise this, spend some time on it, and good luck in your exam paper.